Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. The sun is shining. What date is it, Andy? You always get me to say what date it is.
26th of June.
26th of June. Furlough is in full swing. There's pictures of people at the beaches. We need to get people back to work. We need to get this economy moving again. Before I get into all this, big shout out to our sponsors, Vincere, to Interprotect. Who else do we have sponsoring us, Andy? Who else? Rexband. Who are they? What do they do?
Management consultancy for recruitment growth.
There we go. Andy Hallet, he's your man. Also, we've partnered with Louise Archer, who helps recruitment firms sell retainers, which is something I'm not very good at, that I'm going to get good at because I've signed up for her course.
Don't forget the recruiting gym as well. We
have the recruiting gym as well because we want to improve our people's training, because maybe that's something I'm not great at as well. But we've decided that me and you both have some development points in that area, isn't that right?
Potentially.
Okay. That's a shout out to all those wonderful people who are helping us build our business. Today's guest, Ifty Nasir. Tell us all about yourself, Nifty.
Hi, Dualta. Hi, my name's Ifty. I'm founder of Vested, which is an online platform to help people reward all those folk who help them build their business with a piece of that business. That might be a small piece of business, a small piece of equity in the business or an option, but it's basically helping everybody get skin in the game, taking away the cost and complexity that is usually associated with working with equity. But it's all about just making that easy.
Lovely. And we will jump into a lot of that. Andy, do you know how this came about?
No. Well, I presume it's to do with the equity we're looking to release in scale to the partners and the practice leads.
Well, that's the ultimate piece. But I've been speaking to recruiters for 5 years, and they always complain to me. EMI schemes, they don't work. They're not real. I don't have visibility on what my part's worth. I don't trust it.
Yeah.
We'll never sell. It's not going to be worth it. I need the money right now. But at the same stage, the younger people now, they want to be shareholders. They want to be a part of something. They don't necessarily just want to be an employee. So I went searching for a solution. When I say I mean Charlotte. And that is where we have today's guest. So, Ifty, how did this come about, first of all? Because it's not just recruitment firms that you offer this to. Well, walk me through, how did, where did you come up with the idea, and what was that bit of a journey like?
Okay, well, it's a combination of life and learning for me. So throughout my life, and certainly the latter 15 years or so of working in the conglomerate world, I was responsible for mergers and acquisitions, actually running businesses, buying businesses, using equity, using all sorts of different tools around that, motivating leadership teams that we put in place, again, with different equity and stake in the business, was a very powerful tool. I had the benefit of very expensive lawyers and bankers to help me do that throughout that journey. But I guess my life changed after my parents passed away. I just thought, traveling the world, spending 3 weeks out of the month away was not the future that I wanted to have. And I wanted to take some of this learning and capability and help deploy it with smaller businesses in the UK. Not everybody can afford the expense of lawyers and others to help them put this together. So what we did was build a platform with the objective of making it possible for everybody, however early stage they are, right the way through, to be able to deploy their equity in a safe and efficient manner. And that's, as I said, part of my own background. Another piece of it was the learning that I had around the ownership effect. The ownership effect is some research that was done, probably about 40 years ago, which talked to the whole notion that if you have equity, a stake in a business, your relationship with it changes emotionally, psychologically. What you bring to the table changes. And if you think that business, success and failure is on the margins, 1 or 2% of magic or not can be the difference between success and failure. So if you can access that through the ownership effect, it's a very powerful tool. And I think that's the basis of where things like EMI, the scheme that you mentioned earlier, actually came to the fore. It's something that Gordon Brown initiated many years ago. And I think the philosophy behind that was that businesses that have ownership within their team on a portfolio basis will typically do better. So if we can incentivize that, let's do that. We'll end up with more successful businesses which end up paying more tax. So it's worth helping them in the early stages to get their teams involved.
Andy, you've had a chat with Ifty before we went live. Well, what did you discuss?
We discussed, how we come here, and interestingly, the problem he's solving, i.e., how do you get a decent scheme that's trusted without having to build it all yourself and do those expensive lawyers. I think what's really interesting is I saw the power of the ownership. In fact, he's talking about at S3. There are a couple of things that we did. I mean, the first one was the float. So the float, when we went to a PLC, a number of people had a substantial amount of shares, and actually even down to the lower levels of shareholding. People did well when the company floated, but we knew that it was going to be a few years away, and therefore we would be rewarded for the bit that we contributed. So, and that was very real, and that was a massive motivator for us to build S3, at all the levels. Then I think what's really driven S3's growth, and certainly internationally, has been the minority interest scheme. So, where people take a stake in the business at the start, and then they're rewarded at the end of 5 years with something that's significantly worth something. So you really saw how that draw that, and even the share schemes they operate, buy as you earn and save as you earn schemes. Again, build massive advocacy within that organisation. And with a PLC, it's a bit easier structure because it's very visible. The share price is there every day, and it's probably the topic of conversation that starts the day. What's the share price like? Because pretty much everyone's a shareholder in some way or the other. So, it was a really good conversation, actually. And I think the interesting thing that the vested platform does is it means you don't need to be a big PLC to have that.
And Ifty, when small businesses like myself have a first conversation with you, what type of things do we not understand about shares, and what type of common questions come up in terms of how do you split it up? How does it work?
I guess the reason why we've set up the consultations as a free conversation is because we know people just do not understand this area at all. It's a very specialized area. It's something that, if you think about that, even again, going back to the EMIs, if there's, say, 4,000 of those done per annum in the UK, how many is that per lawyer or accountant? It's not many when you think about the number of lawyers and accountants. So, there's a deep amount of knowledge. There's an amount of benefit that you get from just doing, this is what we do, day in, day out. So when people come to us, they start off with a very confused understanding of what is possible and what they might want to do. They don't understand just their own equity position. Some of them may have set up the business with 1 share or 100 shares. How do we do that? Do we give shares away to people? Do we create a new share class? So there's a big conversation. The main thing that we try and understand is what is it that you're trying to achieve, and who is it that you're trying to achieve it for and with. And from that, we'll try and share our knowledge and our experience to help them find the possible solutions for what they're trying to achieve. And if equity is not part of that solution, then we'll be very clear. We only want people on the platform that can genuinely utilise and benefit from what we provide.
And I'll jump into some of that. But Andy, that ties very nicely into how you advise people and advised us. Can you elaborate what that means in real terms to recruitment founders?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we had to do is work out what the proposition was, and therefore, how you recognise and reward people comes out of that. So, and I think one of the things that Ifty's absolutely got spot on is a consultation. What is it you're looking to achieve, and what options do you have? And this mechanism works well for this, but this probably works best for you. And I think being really clear around what we were probably then makes that consultation easier. And the other thing to say as well is that you've gone through the pain, Ifty, of getting FCA regulation. Yeah. So it's not a bit of this is a proper financial product that you need to do well and need to do properly, supported by software that gives everyone, all the stakeholders, the trust as well. I think it's a really smart play.
And just on that, and it also gives people the visibility. They can see the deal that they've been offered. They can see it's real, and they can track it over time and see how their value grows in the business as the business's valuation grows, how they personally will benefit.
I really liked what you talked about, almost that sort of calculator, as if the business does this is what it's worth. Almost, we used to plug that into contract recruiters. If you did this GP at this percentage, this is how much you're going to get. But to actually do it made it feel tangible for people and real.
So what does that mean in real terms? So I've got 2 guys in Dublin right now, and we want to grow that out. How do we reward them? What would you do? What would be your thinking about how we go about that there?
So if they're in Dublin, I guess there's a number of different options. They're not a UK limited company, which is where our focus is, as you know,
sure.
Dualta. But if you were a UK limited company and you wanted to give somebody a piece of the business offshore, they were not employees of your business. If there are employees of your business, I'm sure there's options that you have within Ireland that will solve this problem for you. But if you were a UK limited company and you wanted to reward those people who are sat in Dublin, you have 2 choices. You can either go with unapproved options, which have a very easy route to giving people the opportunity to buy a share at a low price when you shake hands with them at some stage in the future when the business is, say, doing much better, when there's an opportunity to sell or whatever. Or you can give them the opportunity to earn growth shares, whereby they share in the value of the business that they help you create beyond the time at which they join you. I mean, that's very simplistic solutions around that, but there are 2 different routes that you could go for those individuals, and whether they are going to receive that reward in the form as individuals, or whether they're going to receive that reward in the form of some limited company that they have set up as consultants, will be a different answer.
And does that mean that they get money on the end of it, or does it affect the way that they're compensated, or how do people normally work that piece out?
Well, we help them in working that piece out, because each recipient on our platform will have their own portal, so they can see what's happening as the value of the equity that they are participating in grows. But in terms of how they would relate to that, it literally is through the platform. Maybe I've missed the first bit of your question.
That's fine. And did you have anything you want to delve into more deeply on that?
No, I think the thing that's really important is that I liked the fact that when you do the deal, it's very clear what the deal is at that point, and you lock it in. What you talked about, Dualta, earlier, is that there's loads of disaffected people that are sat around businesses actually probably being quite cynical, that they just think that this is never going to happen. And in reality, I think there's probably a lot of owners that think, well, it will happen, and they're losing the sort of the goodwill of their staff because they're just not able to demonstrate it. And as well, even the ownership team don't always understand this. These schemes are sometimes very complex, and actually having the owners being able to model it out and everyone see the same thing, one version of the truth, is incredibly powerful. So having that sort of this is the deal and this is locked in and this is what you need to do is massively important.
Yeah, we were able to see that raising the the share price from A to B is not going to make just going to make Dualta a millionaire or a billionaire. This is what it means for me as Johnny or Jim or Charlotte or whatever.
Yeah. What I envisage is that my guys will be able to log in and see where their growth shares are at. But also, while we're celebrating wins at the end of the quarter, say, we'll talk about our deals. We'll talk about the different good things that have happened with getting new business in and all the rest. But I ultimately want to tie it into, and here's where we're at in terms of a value, and here's where we need to get to, and we're all in it together. And I feel like that communication isn't being done right in small businesses. Like these, again, back to the pain points. People don't get sent what their shares are. They're not exactly explained exactly how and when they'll be valuable. They just are something that it's not communicated right.
I know, as we said earlier, Dualta, if you're just given a promise, a verbal promise, and a 25, 30-page document that you have to breathe through and understand, and then in real time understand this week or next year or whatever, what is that worth to me? It's really difficult.
I've had a demo, and for the sake of not boring people to death, can you just quickly jump through what that looks like for the owner from a standpoint when they want to log in and have a look at the different bits, and then at the same stage what it looks like for the employee, or is that one of the same?
No, it's quite different. But yeah, I'll do my best. So firstly, the platform, as you mentioned, is FCA authorised and regulated. So we have to make sure that everything that we do is done compliantly. So in the first instance, when you come onto the platform, we will connect into Companies House, pull your data, make sure that your equity position as you believe it today is indeed correct. If there's any errors in that, we'll help you fix that and make sure that we are building on a solid platform.
Yeah.
Everything that we ever do for you then there point forward is clearly going to be with due process, as I mentioned earlier. So board resolutions, the platform will create and distribute for you. Shareholder resolutions, again, they're all digitally signed, so it takes moments to get through the whole process of authorising something, whether it's the issuance of a share pool, whether it's the issuance of growth shares, whether it's adoption of new articles. All these things can be done very quickly, very efficiently, and it's all recorded for you there on the platform. So as you said earlier, you have a single truth of everything to do with your equity on the platform.
Yeah.
For the team, also, you have a full view of everybody who you're issuing shares to, under what authorization, under which pool. You can keep a track of that. You can see each of those individuals, what their horizon and reward profile is. But then each recipient gets their own portal as well. Within that portal, they'll be able to see a summary of their scheme. They'll be able to download their full scheme. They'll be able to see their vesting schedule. They'll be able to do what-if scenarios within an element of that portal where they can see, if we get to this, what's this going to be worth for us? If we don't get to that, if Dualta's just blowing hot air, what does that really mean to me?
Yeah. Andy calls this a culture of no bullshit, no surprises.
It's absolutely transparent, yeah.
And that fits in exactly with everything that we're about. People misconstrue that you join, you get 10%. It doesn't work like that with shares. Explain that for the layman like me.
So my belief, different people have very, very different views, obviously, and the circumstance should determine this as well. But for me, nobody should be able to have any of your equity if they don't deliver on what they promised they would bring to the table in lieu of that equity. So yes, they should be able to benefit from the agreement that you shake hands on, and you should be able to deploy that in pretty much real time. That's sealed, that's contractual. And then if they deliver, they get it, and they get it at the best possible outcome. If they don't, they're not going to walk away. All the structures that we have are based on some form of conditionality, whether they are options, whether they are shares, whatever. It's all around somebody being able to get what they have deserved And if they haven't, there are mechanisms to pull that back. But if they do, they get it, and they get it at the best tax financial mechanism that's there available to us.
And Andy, for us, can you just delve in that sounds to me like it's based around ultimately P&L.
Yeah, in reality, and I think there's two things that will determine the guys who are the practice leads. That what they'll get is that both their overall growth of their own practices, but secondly, the greater part of the group. So the other thing to look at is how much we base on their individual effort and how much we base on the group effort potentially as well. So how much of it, how important is the community in the overall scale, and how much is their individual worth as well. So I think that is probably the key thing that we need to work through.
What other things that do companies who employ your software do excellently?
So I guess one of the things is obviously,
what does great look like?
Great looks like helping clients understand who is critical to the success of the business, who's really going to help it grow, and then finding a way to reward that person, whether they're a NED, whether they're a strategic advisor, strategic suppliers.
He did it for the love. He's in it for the love. He doesn't need it.
Tell me more.
No, I've heard enough.
If you understand your business well enough, you will know whether a handful of clients may be worthy of holding a small piece of equity. It might be tiny, but it's about spreading that ownership effect. It's about making as many people vested in your success as you can make possible in a sensible and effective manner. Doesn't mean that everybody turns up on your cap table, because that's one of the concerns that people have. Oh, you have such a messy cap table. Well, firstly, with digital tools, having a messy cap table is not such an issue. However, it's still important to avoid it. Yeah. You should have. So, using vested, you can also use the nominee structure. So you can create reward mechanisms that can go out to many individuals, but will just turn up on your cap table as a single legal owner, whereas the individuals will be able to have visibility and beneficial ownership through the platform.
This all excites me so much.
I've got a question for you, Ifty, because having seen this product, this potentially solves the problem for every growing business in the UK. Your addressable market. So what's the plan for Vested?
How can we help you out from a recruitment standpoint?
Yeah.
I guess there's lots of opportunities going forward. I think, going back to what our conversation was earlier, Andy, you have to understand the business that you have as it is in the first instance. You have to make that solid. I talked to Andy about the pivot that we had to make, having already spent $500,000 in a couple of years on the journey to pivot and edit to the structure that we have now from a marketplace to a SaaS. So where we are now is, I think we've got absolute tangible product market fit. We've probably got that well into last year. And we were ahead of this COVID arena, just about to move on a gear in terms of growing the business even faster. But we've been doing pretty well. If you look on average over the last couple of years, well into double-digit month-on-month growth. So the UK is our core. We have opportunities to broaden the product range within the UK, and clearly there's opportunities beyond. But I wouldn't want to go into too much of that now, because you have to build each step solidly before you move on. Yeah,
get that. No, it's from our conversation earlier as well. It must be a very exciting time for you.
It is very.
Fantastic. Look, thanks so much for joining us. I've had a demo. It's amazing. We're going with the product. We're delighted to. If anybody else wants to find out more about Ifty's product Vested, there'll be a link below. So just click on that, and we will be back next week with another awesome guest that will help recruitment firms like ours build, grow, scale, do things better. Thanks so much, Ifty. Your product's amazing.
Thank you very much. Cheers.